So I'm going to briefly just share my screen here so you can see some of the ways that we normally recommend folks use it. Okay, so this is a document you can easily access. I'll pop it in the chat in just a moment. So one of the reasons to use breakout rooms, if I was to put it in the simplest terms, is that the students like them, right? Another reason is that there's so much research around the effectiveness of teamwork and group work. And this is really the best way to execute that in the online space. So by giving the students a few moments to sort of think about a prompt or a problem scenario, maybe even a case question, have them work together for a few minutes, exchange ideas, kind of build up their confidence in what they're going to say. When you bring them back out for that breakout room, you've increased the chances that they're actually going to share a response, okay? So what it basically does is in some ways it facilitates warm calling, right? So for those of you who like to call on your students to get more interaction, this is a perfect avenue. You present your prompt, they head in and discuss it in a breakout room, and they can come back out and have that discussion with you. So another thing, so I know a lot of you do problem-based learning or scenario-based learning. And this is a great way to also work on that. So you can give them sort of different hypotheticals, or if you have a case, for example, you might say one group is working on what the protagonist could have done differently. Another person might be working on what the group did differently. So you don't have to give each breakout room the same assignment. You have a lot of ability to sort of treat it almost like a jigsaw activity where you put them into those groups to discuss specific elements of your case, of your problem, of your hypothetical. And then when they come back, you can ask for kind of a spokesperson from each group to share out what they've discussed, what ideas they came up with. Or if you've given them a deliverable, then they may be able to actually show you that deliverable. So questions sort of about the why of using it before I go into the best practices. All good? Okay. Oh, welcome, Victor.
Thank you.
Didn't see you come in. Okay, so for best practices, this is one that I really can't overstate because I've done this. My students love breakout rooms, but you do have to be very explicit about what it is they're going to do in that breakout room. So you want to clarify what are they expected to complete. And I do encourage, if you can, to assign a deliverable, right? So got a few ideas here. It might be you have them make a slide. It might be they have a shared Google document that they present. It might be that they give a 1-minute summary. So whatever it is, just make sure that there's something they are working on while they're in the breakout room. So when they come out, they're not just saying, this is what we talked about and so-and-so talked about and so-and-so talked about, right? They're sort of presenting an answer or an idea. You do want to let them know how long they will have. People are often ask us for sort of recommendations about what's the ideal length of time. There's really no ideal length of time. It really depends on what it is that you're trying to have them work on, what it is you're trying to have them achieve. But remember, if you give them quite a long time, so if you give them, say, upwards of 14 minutes, they might also try and use that time, as you would as well, right? If I give you 15 minutes right now to work on something, you might go and make a cup of tea, or it's America, you might go and make a cup of coffee, right? Or get a snack or something. So you want to clarify an amount of time that they're going to actually utilize in the class, unless you want to give them a break, in which case, go ahead. If you are giving them something to work on, like a Google Doc or a Google Slides, I know some folks here have already said they're going to be using those tools. Make sure that they have the link. So you should have it ready to paste, pop it in the chat. And for your own sake, make sure your sharing permissions are up to date. And most of you already know how to do this, but in case you don't, when you open any document you've made or any Google slide you've made, you'll see this blue share button in the top right corner. And that's where you can change the settings, okay? So for something like this, you might change it down here. So yours wouldn't look exactly like this because this is obviously for our website. But you would shift it at the bottom. I can move my zoom over. down here, so you can copy the link and you can edit who can view it. So you would, this one is anyone on the internet with this link because it's our website, but you would change it to say anybody at UMD, okay? Because your students will have their UMD email. So another thing that's quite important is if they are working in a group, you want to remind them to ensure that they hear from every team member. So it's sometimes very easy if you put them in a group that there's a leader, right? And you've seen this, you also teach business, you know that there are those people who can immediately take over a conversation, which is fine and it happens and it's organic, but you need to remind them to make sure they've heard from every voice who's in that group with them. So like I said already, oh, was there a question? Did I miss someone?
I just popped the link to the document into the chat.
Excellent, Carrie, thank you.
Sure.
So sharing and setting up expectations also around what it will look like when they're in that group is important, right? So like I said, hearing from every member, but you might have other things that are standards, right? For example, maybe it's an idea sharing event, so there is no bad idea, right? And you want to set that tone for the students ahead of time so they can maintain it. Assign a deliverable, which I already covered, and then remind them that they get about 30 seconds or a 1-minute countdown before leaving the breakout room. So you don't need to worry about cutting people off mid-conversation. When you click close all rooms, which Suzanne will show you a little bit later, they get a full minute to sort of finish their conversations and do follow-up. So don't worry about letting them know that that's going to happen. And then the last one is visit breakout rooms if you can. So while they're in the breakout rooms, you have the option to join them. Pardon me, talking too much. I don't recommend talking this much when you're lecturing. Make sure you're hearing from the students more. But visit the breakout rooms just to make sure everything is working. So when the students are in the breakout rooms, they see an option to ask for help, right? So you can get that notification if you're in the main room, but it's just good practice to visit each of them to say, do they understand where they're at? Do they have everything they need? Do they access the link? Right, whatever it might be. So always worthwhile to consider visiting your students. So questions about best practices or ways that you might use it before Suzanne shows us how to do it. Hi, Edil. Hi, Karen. Hi, Liz. Hi, Ken. Hi, Carol. It's so funny. Edil and Adina and I were all together until the wee hours last night for their orientation. So I'm happy to see the same faces again. Any questions from anyone now?
So far, I think one of the things I've had is occasionally I have lots of messages coming, oh, can you stop by our room? Can you stop by our room? And since I can't parallel process, sometimes that causes a bottleneck occasionally, just to let you know.
Yeah, so Kislaya, what I would do in that instance is maybe give them a little bit more time to reduce some of that anxiety, and then I would tell them that you're going to visit each of them. Yeah. So just say, hey, I've randomized you, it's luck of the draw, going to visit you in order, but don't worry, group 8, I'm going to get to you, group 4, I'm going to get to you. And then tell them if they do have something urgent that they can use that help button. So for example, if they can't see the thing, that would be important to know, but not to worry that you're going to get to each of them. And again, if you spend a little bit of extra time setting up the expectations, it might mitigate some of what they're in that moment going, what exactly did he ask us to do? So I know that for me, I've made that mistake where I've sort of been like, okay, you all have it, here's the link, go in, I'll see you in the breakout rooms. And then as soon as I go into the first breakout room, they're like, wait, what exactly did she say? Right? And so I've learned to kind of go a little bit slower, explain what's going to happen, and then I ask them, do you feel like you know what you're going to do when you get into the breakout room? And mostly you'll get those thumbs up and then they pop in.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, Suzanne, I think it's all you. If you have questions you want to pop in the chat while Suzanne is demoing, some of the OTL folks and myself will be answering those.
All right, I want to start sharing. So all this information that I'm going to go through is actually on our website. So you just go to otl.resmith.umd.edu. Under technology and teaching online. Under Zoom, there's two links. One is that breakout room that Darren just shared. And there's this document on how to actually set it up. These are basically the steps I'm going to go through. I think some of the stuff might be outdated because I know since the day I created this and now Zoom did a lot of changes, especially with like security. So, but I'll go through what you really need to check. Yeah, this was created back in April, and from April to now, they've added like a bunch of different settings and new settings. So some of the screenshots might be different. So, and then we also have a video I think we'll have this recording plus a recording that we already created about how to set this up. So there's a lot of resources to help you in case you like forget about this meeting, right? So first thing you have to go, like you set up your Zoom meetings like you would normally do in class. I have an existing meeting, so we're gonna add a breakout room to like office hours or something. So you go to your Zoom site, which is umd.zoom.us, and you go to settings. You have to make sure a few things are enabled. So the first thing is waiting room. Enable that because you kind of need that to make sure the students are authenticated, because Zoom's documentation says that the only way you can do breakout room is to have registration. So you could enable it, but normally we don't really ask students to like, hey, register to come to your Zoom meeting. So you can just enable it. That way we can check to make sure the students are who they are. Plus, you can make sure that there's no like non-students coming into your class. The other thing I do, which is optional, I actually customize my waiting room. So on the bottom, or you can even add on the top, the message to say, to bypass the waiting room, please select sign in button below and choose sign in using SSO. Because if they're not logged in, they'll be in the waiting room, but then if they see a message that says, hey, if I sign in, I can just come through it, then that'd be great. Then you know that they're authenticated. So the waiting room options, for me, I do users not in my account. So basically they have to have a UMD Zoom account or like UMD email address. And then this is default. I only let hosts and co-hosts let them in. So if you are having like a guest speaker, then they'll be in the waiting room and you can just like click on them. So you have the waiting room, you enable that. Then you enabled, let me see, remember, authentication. Only authenticated users can join. So this is also another security feature. If you enable it, there should be an option that says UMD only. So that's where they are required to sign in with the SSO. So then the Zoom would know that it is a student, because it'll bring them to the CAS login with the directory ID. So if you enable that, they can't join the meeting unless they actually click on that sign in and then sign in with SSO. If you don't do that, then I mean, it's fine if you leave it out, because if you have like guest speakers, they don't have an authentication, so you can disable it for that one meeting. But this will help alleviate like people not coming into your breakout rooms. Then the last thing is to actually enable breakout room options. Let me see if I remember what that is. Breakout room. So I think by default is disabled. So you just need to make sure it is enabled so you can see that option. And then allow host to assign participant to breakout rooms when scheduling. So when you have those three options enabled, then you should be able to go under your meetings from this website. So we'll go to office hours. Oh, that one's already done, but let me do a new one. So, let's say lunch hours. Right. So you can say only this one or all of them. So I'm gonna just do all. And this is what I set up in Canvas. So now you'll have an option to do breakout rooms here. Enable it. I have to delete it. I should have deleted this before. Stop highlighting. So this will be blank. I'm going to, where it is, import from CSV and then download the template. And the template will have 2 columns. One is the pre-assigned room name and the email address. So the email address, you can either get it from UMake. I don't have access to UMake, but I think someone showed me how it looks like. They give you like the director ID. It emails you the director ID, and you can use that. Or since I don't have access to UMake, I can actually go under people and then download the student roster. So the thing with the student roster is, oops, that's not it. Here it is. It gives you their name and then the email address they have for Canvas. So sometimes the email address they have for Canvas does not match like their @UMD email address. So those will have to like fix. So like half of my students they have the UMD address, which will work. So I'm going to copy the email address over to my template. And I'm going to paste it in and then give them a room. So I'm going to say that's going to be the guest. Former UMD. This one's empty, so I'm just going to delete. Right, so I have my groups here, my email address. So this one is not a UMD address, so I'm going to have to like look them up. So usually I can just go over here and see what the director ID. So like this person, where'd it go? Like Mayor M. Maxon. That's the director ID. So I can just do mmaxon@umd.edu. Same thing here. Oh, Joshua. So, oh, he's not here. I can't remember his director ID, but normally you can just look it up under UMag. So I'm gonna delete this one. Same thing here. All right, so I know, but normally you just find out what your student's director ID is and then just add the @UMD. So I'm done. I'm gonna save this. Oh, actually, sorry. Oh, I looked at the wrong. Okay. Copy this into my breakout room one. Oh, all right. So now I'm going to save this. Close. And I'm going to open this file. So I'm going to put it down. Right. And then it automatically put everyone in here. If you don't have a UMD email address, it's going to give you an error saying like, let me pick one. It's not the right. Let me see one more. If I try to upload again, it would. Oh, actually did. Maybe it'll work now. But like I had this problem where it wouldn't let me take it. So maybe they changed it. But students, they don't get what I've been told, that TurtMail will not work with the Zoom.umd, or like the Zoom site. So it's better to just use the director ID. Yeah, because they can't authenticate. So this is done. I'm just going to save it. So then when I go to my Zoom site here, it won't show up here, but it's still, if you go here, like these are the same meetings. It shows here. Oh, wait, there you go, my breakout rooms. And you can see the details. They used to, you used to be able to see the option here once you ended able here, but I guess the new, whatever changes they made, is not showing up here. So then when you do a, if you can see my screen, when you hit more breakout rooms, it'll be loaded here. So I had Carrie did this earlier for me, like yesterday. So as you can see, Carrie's already in here, Darren's in my OTL group, and then Garrett's here. I'm gonna see if I can recover, and let's see if it, there you go, right? So these are the people that I found, like when they were coming in, it didn't automatically assign it for some reason. So all I do is just recreate it, and then they show up here. More people show up here. And then if I need more people, let's see. I know.
Suzanne, can I interrupt just for a minute?
Yeah.
So a lot of folks have just emailed me privately, so I'm going to just give a tiny bit more context for what we're doing. So we're demoing how to pre-assign a breakout room. So for those of you who do a lot of group project work, maybe where you want to keep your students in the same groups, this notion of building the CSV file and pre-assigning the rooms is how you do it. If you just want to run a breakout room in Zoom, it's a much simpler process to automatically do it. So this is some of the questions that we had gotten. So Suzanne just showed you what it looks like. So if you were just going to do it randomly, you would hit on your breakout rooms, and then it'll say automatically suggest a number of rooms.
Yeah, right here.
And yep, there you go. You can see that on the screen. So we're showing you what the pre-assignment would look like. But this is what you would do if you just wanted to create breakout rooms with a certain amount of students in each one. So just to give you that context, this is the demo for pre-assigning.
Yeah, so this is the pre-assigned room. Yeah, so this is the pre-assigned room. You do all the import, and you get your students in the template file, and then you import it, and then you have it saved to that meeting. Will they get notified if they get added to a pre-assigned room? Yeah, so then when you assign them to a pre-assigned, no, they don't get notified. So then when you start the room, you just tell them that you've been assigned to a room, and then you're gonna send them to the breakout room.
You do a mixture of pre-assigned rooms and random rooms in the same class.
So what was that?
Can you do a mixture of having students in randomized rooms and pre-assigned rooms in the same session?
Yeah, so like I have a pre-assigned room right now. So if I need more people, like I know there's a lot more people in this meeting that isn't in a group. So I can just randomly pick one. So I'm gonna, let's say, pick here. I'm gonna add Kasaya. I'm gonna add Rob to this meeting. right? Because from here, like once it's already created, you can't just tell it to randomly add the rest to the groups. So you have to actually manually add the rest. If that, oh, that's weird. Candace not there. See more. So everyone's there. Let's see. Yeah, so then if I want to create it and make it random now, so I can just recreate all rooms, I want, 7 rooms automatically, recreate all, and now I just randomize everyone. And it actually made it pretty equal. 1 person with 4. So, and then when you're done, you just hit open all rooms. And you can send a message to everyone in the room. And then you can close it all.
So you can have a student in 2 groups, one that's assigned randomly and one that was pre-assigned.
Well, you can do 1 at a time. So like if you already had it pre-assigned and then you decide, oh, okay, let's redo the entire breakout room to random. Like you can recreate them again. I'll do 6 rooms. And you can create a new one and then you send everyone to that new group. And then if I want to go back to the pre-assigned one, you just quickly set to pre-assigned. So any questions? I go too fast?
So you do this pre-assignment before class, and they receive a message that they will work in groups in that class, or you do this during the class?
You can do it before class. They don't get any message that you're making them into a pre-assigned group.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to notify them that you're going to put them in groups.
Sure. And if you decide spontaneously just to do random discussion groups, let's say the dynamic of the larger group seems too slow and you want to have them in breakout rooms for a particular question, is it possible to do these random groups, random breakouts during the session?
Oh, like, hold on. Sorry, are you talking about?
Say I'm in session and I just want to go to random assignments. Where do I do that?
Oh, so you bring out your breakout room button, and then there's this will say create, and then it'll say like create new room, and it'll bring up this window, if you can see it.
Right, but I'm speaking not if I had them pre-assigned before. I'm just saying I never had pre-assigned rooms. I just want to have random breakout.
Yeah, it'll be the same window.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying recreate, it'll just say create room. So when you create the room, it'll bring up this window that says like this is how many people you have in your meeting right now, and how many rooms do you want to break them out into.
Okay.
Right, so you click 5, and you can manually assign them, or you can have it automatic.
Yeah.
Right. So if I do manually, it'll just create, and then you just assign your students.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
Suzanne, I have a question. This is Candace. So if you wanted to, let's say, because I think one of the advantages to doing the pre-assigned breakout rooms is that, let's say you want the groups to be the same for each session. And it sounds like the pre-assigned breakout rooms would be the way to go. But maybe if you didn't want to go through this process of having to upload, because it's a few steps, you could possibly do it manually if you just have a list of all of the groups, and who's going to be in that, in each group. Is that also another way to do it? Is there like a disadvantage to that? Or would you just say do the pre-assigned breakout rooms?
I mean, if you're gonna have the same group, are you saying like if you're gonna have the same group throughout the whole semester?
Yeah, or maybe for like multiple sessions. Yes. So if it's for the whole semester or for multiple sessions.
Yeah, so like, oops, sorry. So usually when you do, because if you're having the same group for the rest of the semester or your multiple section, you just edit the meeting, because since it's a recurring meeting, this will save for every single meeting that you have. So, right here, this one. Right, so I added to the lunch hour and I set it to save all. So each one I have is the new breakout room. So if you want to just edit this one, you can just say only this meeting, and then you can upload like a new breakout room. So I'll just do like 3 more and I save. Right, so this meeting for the 28th has, oh, did not say could add anyone. Weird. Oh. Oh, no. Cancel. Wait, why is it not saving now? 28th. Okay, so these are the new ones I made for the 28th. And then I can come over to, I change it to the shower here, and it's still, oh, I said 1. That's weird. I said only this meeting. Is it not? And I gotta check whether or not it's the caching sheet, but normally you can change it for each meeting. But it looks like this one's just saving for all of it because it's recurring. So I guess if you're trying to change the groups in the middle semester, you might have to just edit your template, re-upload the groups for that meeting and on.
Suzanne, if you're going to have, let's say, a major case study for the semester, and let's say you have 25 students and you want 5 groups of 5, can you ask the students to form their own groups and sign in as a group, or do they have to tell us and then we have to put them in manually?
Yeah, they'll have to tell you, and you have to put them in manually because students can't join their own pre-assigned breakout rooms. Or yeah, like if you make in a breakout room, students can't join it. You have to actually put them in there. I don't think, let me see. Darren, are you allowed to, since you're a co-host, can you put people in breakout rooms?
No, co-host can't.
Okay. Yeah, so students can't do it themselves, so you have to move them in. So you can either do the breakout room, pre-assigned breakout room, or you can just create the room and then each class move them in there.
Thank you.
And you could do that. They could form their own groups on Canvas.
Yeah.
And then from there you could put them in the Zoom groups manually, but they can form their own groups in Canvas.
Yeah, so in Canvas, you can let them do, let's see if I do it here. So like if I do a group, so student created groups, you can say allow self-assign. If I have multiple sections here, so I will say create 5 groups, limit to 5. And then if you want to automatically sign or just set random, I'm just going to say for now. Right, so these are all self-assigned, and you can give them like names. So like case Starbucks. And then what the students do, they come to this people class and they should see the same group. And then they just click, they'll see a join button and they can join the group. And then you'll have a record of who joined what. And then you can.
I've used that before. The only thing I was asking, is there a way after they've done this in Canvas to export that in those same groups into Zoom? But you're saying no, you have to actually manually.
Yeah, because there's no export button, which is a little sad. I think everyone else is asking, like, is there an easy way to export these into Excel so then you can use it somewhere else? And they haven't added that feature yet. So that would be like a manual process. Okay, Leslie suggested is that you could get them to create a Google Doc, share a link with students, and they can sign up during online session. And then you can manually put them into breakout rooms. And then if you have a TA, you can make them the host, and then they can work on it in the background while you're the co-host and you're teaching. So that could be a good idea too.
Yeah, I was going to say, the ideal workflow, of course, would be able to export and import between the two systems. So we've been working with you all to kind of find some workarounds that sort of best fit your workflow. So definitely, like, you're on the right track pedagogically with what you want to do with your students. So the answer isn't no. There might be steps that might just be individual to you and what makes sense for your class size and the support that you have during your synchronous sessions. But we are able to find workflows that work for people.
Is there anything we need to be careful about when creating a Google Doc?
Hi, can folks hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, wonderful. I'm so sorry that I keep going out. It's my Wi-Fi today. Idil, not really. It's just that when you give them share access, you want to make sure that when you're finished, you change the sharing settings unless you want them to use that Google document again. So in my case, if I assign them an activity in a breakout room, what I'll do is have it open sharing so they can all get in, access it, make changes, and collaborate. When the class is over, I change that access to me only, and then I download that document and put it in Canvas so that they can see what they had created and the notes that they took, but they can't continue to edit it in case I'm using it with a different group.
Okay, so use open sharing. Yeah, essentially I was trying to ask if you enter all of the student emails into a shared Google document as well.
No, I leave it open sharing for the purpose of the class. Actually, for exactly the reason you mentioned, some folks are using their UMD email, and that's great, but not all of my students do that.
Right.
for a variety of reasons. So that means everybody has access, everybody can see it, and then I download it and share it with them after.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
One thing you might want to consider when you're making Google Doc is to put page breaks between the pages. That way, a group writing above another group won't move their text as they write.
Ah, great tip. Thank you.
So the last thing, remember how I said to, if you enable the waiting room to only allow authenticated users, when they join the meeting, they'll get this message right here that says, you know, this meeting is for authorized user only. You may have to tell them ahead of time. Like I would probably do like the first 2 weeks during ad drop period to let them to disable the authenticated user only. And then just tell them to remind them that they'll need to start signing in. So when that message comes out, it'll say sign in to join. They click on that and then they'll get the sign in button. They should click on the sign in with SSO. That way it'll bring them to the directory login, the two-factor authentication. And then when they click that, it'll just ask them UMD, and then it'll be, that's where they get the CAS. So maybe add this message to them in class just to remind them that you'll start adding the authentication, so then they can remember this is how they're supposed to sign in to join the meeting. And this is on the pre-assigned breakout room document at the end. Inform your students. And you can copy that if you want. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure what I missed, and I apologize again for that Wi-Fi interruption. But I know that this seems like a lot of work, and it definitely is a lot of work, to be very frank. But for those of you who like to keep people in their project groups, it is absolutely worthwhile to take the time to try and do it this way. And like Suzanne demonstrated, you can have it attached for a recurring meeting so that you don't have to do it over and over again. For other folks, there's definitely a few workarounds. So, you know, people who do project group, but they want their students to kind of have as much time as they want in a Zoom meeting to come back and forth and interact with each other. So I know that's something that one of the MBA instructors had done. So you might create, you know, have them make their own Zoom links in that case, but invite you so that you could visit in a similar way that you do when you join a breakout room. And also, I can just tell you from my own experience. So when I was someone who very much stuck to using my pre-assigned groups. That was important to me. I liked doing it. And then initially in spring, of course, it was much harder to execute what Suzanne's demoing right now. And so I ended up randomizing, and it was actually something that came up in the students' evaluation of my course, that they actually enjoyed that part because they got to speak to different people. And so they weren't able to rely on the shorthand of sort of assuming they know where they were coming from. They had to be more articulate and explain their positions and ideas a lot more when they were working with novel people in their group. So that's something to consider. Also, Zainab had a great question. So she mentioned that she randomizes them in Canvas anyway. And so there's two different answers to that. So if you randomize them in Canvas, but you still want to use that group, you will take the exact steps that Suzanne just demoed here. You'll pull down those group names. You'll put it in your CSV file according to the way that you randomly assigned it in Canvas. Alternatively, though, if you're someone who likes the students to work in groups, but you also like to be able to grade them as such, what I have done, and I've seen other instructors do this, is when you put them in the breakout room, give them a deliverable and then have them write their names on that deliverable. So it might be their name and first initial. And as I mentioned to Idil earlier, you would at that point want to make sure that you change the permissions afterwards. But if you do that, when you go in to grade the assignment or the submission, you have the student's name, so you can sort of write in your comment, put in a grade, let's say 10 out of 10, and then just copy and paste that comment to the other 5 people that are on that list and give them the same points allocation. So you won't be able to grade them as a new group because that would be a lot more work. But it is possible to put them in breakout rooms that are randomly assigned, but have the students be responsible for putting up their names so that it makes grading a little bit easier for you. And I mentioned earlier, we got lots of great questions in the chat. So I am going to make an FAQ about this because I know everybody's scenario was a little bit different where they might want people to come in and partake in a pre-assigned group, but then randomize afterwards. And actually, Gerald had asked a very good question as well. If you assign a breakout room and you randomly have the students allocated into it, like Suzanne had demoed, so you click automatically and then how many groups that you want. Once you've done that exercise and you pull them back to the main session, the previous breakout group allocation will still be there. So even if you randomized the first time, for the second session, you can just pop them back in those rooms again. So that's something that I know definitely works. I've seen it happen. So if you want to randomize it at the beginning, for your whole session, they can still stay with that group if that's important for your assignment or your exercise. So those are just some of the questions that folks had shared, but of course the floor is open to ask more. And I know that we have 10 minutes before the next Dean review. I think someone's chatting there. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm sorry, whomever has joined by phone, I'm afraid we can't hear you. Okay, it must not have been important. But yes, so any other questions that we have, knowing that we'll send you the resources and we'll also send you the FAQ. Thanks, Zainab. Rob, you unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
Hey, very good. So this is something that doesn't have to do with breakout rooms, but it came up in our faculty meeting yesterday. Since we have a second, I thought I would just jump in. When you're doing office hours and you create a waiting room and students show up in the waiting room, one of Anil Gupta was wondering, does it cue them? Does it give you the order in which they showed up so you know who to invite into your office hours next?
Hi, Rob. Yeah, so at least in my experience, they do show up in a line. But Suzanne, you might be able to speak better to the fact, is it very specifically ordered by time, or is that line just sort of randomly formed?
That I don't know, because I haven't really used waiting rooms, or actually I haven't paid attention, like even with like these kind of meetings, I just, as soon as I see them, I just let them join, because I'm not familiar with the order for the Zoom waiting rooms.
Yeah, so Leslie has actually seconded it there. So she had the same experience as I had in that they were ordered by time. So when you see folks in that line, Rob, you could just admit one at a time rather than clicking admit all. If you admit all, it won't tell you, of course, because they'll all appear on the screen as folks are here now.
Right. Okay, thanks a lot. And thanks for this session.
Yes, of course.
And related to that, I found a video because Zainab had the same question because she wanted to have time slots for the office hours. The video I found on Zoom, this is Zoom's website directly, it shows it in a line, but it doesn't have timestamps. So, but I mean, it may be that it is by time, but another thing you could do is maybe have them sign up on a Google Doc or something, have some slots in there, and then obviously enable your waiting room and then let them in for their time slots.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I used Calendly, by the way, for the scheduling the office hours and sort of 15-minute intervals, and it worked really nicely. But For some reason, I couldn't get Calendly to sync with the Zoom settings at University of Maryland.
I had the same experience and reached out to Campus IT a couple of weeks ago because I didn't want to take that extra step of then adding the Zoom link to my Google Calendar invitation. And they said at this time that Calendly is not an approved app for their Zoom instance, or they haven't approved Calendly to integrate. But I emailed them and encouraged a couple of other folks to email them because maybe if there's enough of us.
Yeah, it's
consider
great.
approving
So
it.
I ended up using Google Meet. I don't know what you ended up doing instead of Zoom, but Zoom would have been better because everything else is Zoom. So
Yeah, I've just, whenever the Google Calendar invitation pops up on my Google Calendar, I have my Zoom integrated to that. And so then I just, when it says online space, I just make it the Zoom meeting, but that can be clunky if you have lots of meetings in a row.
all right. Okay, thanks.
And Suzanne and Leslie, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry, Adil, I answered too quickly before you corrected calendar to Calendly. And so I was like, of course you could put it in your calendar. So my apologies.
Sorry, my bad.
Any other questions that we have? Are any folks here intending to try this for their sort of first session or upcoming sessions? Oh, that's good to hear, Adil. I'm glad. And I know that Rob already uses it. And Jasmine, I know that you'll likely be doing that for a lot of the EMBA faculty. So I hope this is helpful.
Definitely. Thank you, guys.
And you know where we are if you need us. This will be in the resource as well, but I'm going to pop our email down here before we let you all go to see the new potential candidate to be dean. So you're all absolutely free to go, and we'll be here if you have continued questions. Thanks, Adil. Take care. Take care, all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adina. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, all.
I have a question. I think WebEx allows you to set up like increments of like 10 minutes or something for like office hours of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Zoom
doesn't though.
Say that again?
So WebEx is great for office hours, but Zoom doesn't have the same.
Right, Zoom. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that because this came up yesterday when I was talking with Zainab. She wants to switch from WebEx to Zoom, and she really liked that feature. And we were just talking about brainstorming about some ways to do it instead if she still wants to use Zoom.
Yeah, for my office hours, what I actually did was left my Zoom open, and then when the students came in, I just assigned them to a breakout room. So like if you had an office hour with me, you had to arrive at 11, right? Okay. But I would assign you to a breakout room, and those were in order of when people arrived. So like if you got breakout room 8, you knew you had a few minutes, to go to the bathroom and do whatever. So I was going to speak with other students first. And that worked pretty well. Most of the students were okay with it.
Okay, so as they came in, you just popped them into the empty room, and then you got to them in order.
That's what I did at first. And then sort of about 3 sessions in, what I did was they would all arrive at 11. And then I would ask, did anybody have any question that would be useful to everyone in the group? And so, 5 of them would ask something they all needed, right? Like, there's a typo in the syllabus, or what's the due date for this? Is it 11:59 p.m. or a.m. or whatever it might be? And then just those students who had a personal question, I popped them into the breakout rooms, and they knew I was coming in order, and it was just randomized, which made it fair if they were all there, or if they had come in order, I just assigned them, like you said.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.